Hey there, folks. Today is Tuesday, October the 10th, 2023. My name is Todor Vodov, and this is the sixth episode of Keeping It Realistic. As you know, in this show, we are going through all the works that have been posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last week, pointing out their strengths, but also talking about their weak sides and eventually proposing solutions to them. What I can tell you already, I see some of you are already online. Welcome everybody, glad you joined the show. What I can already tell you is that this week the show won't be as long as it was last week, because last week we made almost 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is a very long show. So as I announced it by the end of last show, we are discussing ways to make the show shorter. Maybe we'll just limit the number of projects that I will be talking about to maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10. And also the way we choose these 8 to 10 projects will probably happen either with the first to come are the first to serve. So the first 8 to 10 projects that are uploaded in the group will be the ones that I will be talking about, or we'll have to choose them on some in a random way. I'm not sure how we'll be doing this, but we are discussing it. Our goal in the long term is that the show isn't longer than 1.5 hours. In some cases, maybe 2, but not longer than 2, because I'm not sure if anybody is eager to actually stay longer than that. And also for me, it's also pretty exhausting, to be honest. So yeah, in this case, we have like 8 projects to talk about. So I think that the show will be about 1 hour and 15 minutes, depending on how much we also interact with each other in the comments, but it will be shorter, maybe at longest 1.5 hours. I see a lot of interaction in the comments. Helen is there, much love to you. Sebastian, Georgi, Aman, Amit, Leslie, glad to see you all here. Leslie says he's watching while working. I very much recommend that if you work with multiple monitors, that you see it as a kind of a video podcast, so that you put the show to the side and just listen to it. And if you hear a topic that, especially when a show is like 2 hours or something, when you hear a topic that is interesting to you, a project that you have seen in the group, and you want to see more of what I'm showing about this project, then tune in and concentrate more on the show. But in the other time, you can just listen and do your work. And again, if there is something that you cannot see in the moment, you can just go back to the recording later, right? Yeah, Leslie has it on his second monitor. Yeah, this is exactly how I imagine it to be. Well, with this being said, I think that we can actually jump right in. Oh, we have Arthur there. Hey Arthur, glad to see you here. We can jump right in and take a look at the first project for today, which is done by Fabio. He says, hello. With the whole group, I share personal practice work. It's done in 3ds Max and Corona Renderer. The reference project is from ArcDaily. Some models are from George Hughes, and there are links to Fabio's Instagram and Behance. This project is a recreation of Casa Mob by Iglesias Hamelin Arquitectos. A really sweet project that I will show you right now before we start talking about Fabio's recreation. I'm sorry. So this is the original project, a really sweet, simple, yet modern and really welcoming, and just nice interior architecture with lots of sweet small details, and a lot of sweet stuff to recreate. I think this is a really well chosen project to do on your side, Fabio. And I'll stop by this image here, because this is actually the first image of your recreation. Presentation wise, I would say it's one really good presentation. All the info needed is there. Maybe just, especially in a group like this, which is more on an educational level, instead of just saying that your project reference comes from ArcDaily, just post the link, because in this case I had to ask you about it and you provided it to me in the links. Instead, just go right here. And if you ask me, and also Vasilis, you know him from the VW Art Club, we both agree on that if you actually recreate an existing project, the right thing to do is to point out the reference, gladly the architects, so the original creators of the project, and also credit the original photographers. So it's like the maximum. It would be the most awesome thing to do. But even if not, I think, something like this, just ArcDaily, or instead of ArcDaily, just pointing the link would be enough, because everybody can then see the information about the original creators and the photographers and so on. Other than that, the image presentation is obviously great, nicely varied, really beautiful to look at. It just looks like a project on ArcDaily. It really does. We just took a look at the original, and now let's take a look at your images. So we already saw some of these angles in the page that I just shared with all of you. I think you did an awesome job. Just, the first impressions while going through all of these images, you recreated it very faithfully, but you also seem to have given it your own touch in some parts. So yeah, just let's stay at this image. I would say this is, I won't discuss the design as it is, because it is already given by the initial project. But when it comes to the design, this is one of the first points that we talk about. I would say this is a very good choice of reference to recreate, because on the one hand, it is really small and relatively simple to recreate. On the other hand, however, it is interesting and exciting enough, with lots of really nice details, so that by the end you have one really, really exciting final result. The other thing that I just mentioned is that you decided to give it your own touch, because if we come to back to the original, to your first image, we will see that this pendant lamp here, also the two ottomans here, are way darker than they are in the original. And I personally don't think that you don't have the skills to just brighten up some textures. So in my opinion, you just went for a slightly different look that you like more, let's say, which I think is awesome. There is never something wrong with that. If you just decide, you know what, I want it to be other, I think the original project is awesome, but if I were to make it, I would make a few things differently. So yeah, in your case, you chose to work with darker wood. You also chose to have cupboard door handles here instead of the original that doesn't have them at all. And I think this is very legit. One thing, however, is that the result of this is that your images are darker than the original photo session. Now, this mustn't be an issue. Again, this is oftentimes just a matter of personal preference. The thing, however, is that this is a relatively small apartment. It's a confined space. So dark tones are a bit of a difficult topic with such small spaces, because they make them look even smaller. So let's compare this one image, the sync shot. So you see in the original we have the brighter wood. Here we have it also on the shelves, and you see how we can actually see up until the back wall of the shelves without any issue. So everything here is clearly and nicely visible to the viewer. And if we compare with your shot, you will see how the depth of the shelves is really contrasty. It's really dark, especially here where you also have table stuff, which is just plates that are too dark. So the visibility and the general feel about this project changes with the materials and with the darkness that you chose to go with. This is just something that you need to be aware of. Other than that, I would say the modeling is really good, both the modeling and especially the assets that you have used in your project. They look really, really, really nice. The plants, both the potted plants and all the small stuff which is just lying around is pretty cool. I really like it. So if it's not a secret, gladly share with us where you got it from. Even if it's not, if you're not here today on the direct show, in the live show, you can maybe share it as a comment in the recording afterwards, because these are some really, really fine assets here. The only thing that I didn't like as much is if we go to this one close up here and we zoom on the plant to the left, you will see that it is quite edgy, right? So some plants, not all the plants are very organically flowing. Some of them actually have some corners here and there, but this plant with all the edges that we see here looks like it just needs more turbo smooth or something, or maybe you just need a different plant, because it's not on par with, let's say, the insane awesome quality of the rest of the assets. Material wise, awesome. Everything is just right. I would say the only exception are the floor tiles, because you seem to have chosen floor tiles that are for the outdoor. You see these are concrete block floor tiles, and I only have seen them being used in exterior areas. And if we compare to the original here, we will actually see that they have pretty normal, large formatted, normal interior tiles. So even though the ones that you have chosen fit the scene when it comes to tonality or colors, they aren't really for the interior area. Maybe, or let's say not for the private interior areas. Maybe you can use some of these in a museum or something, so in public interior areas, but not in a private small flat, I think. When it comes to the lighting and framing, I mean, most of it is already being given, so you managed to really nicely recreate it. What I didn't find as an initial shot that you recreated was this one. And personally, if I were you, I would extend this one so that the plant isn't cut off here in the top. So something like this, to be honest. I think that the framing in being like this looks just better. Of course, we have this empty space here. Maybe you can work with shadows there if you don't want to put another object here. Or personally, if I were you, I would zoom on this dough and just use a very, very strong depth of field to make it really stick out, and this would be it. And with this being said, I don't know what else to say other than this is one really awesome recreation and a great project to add to your portfolio. Again, it seems that you're not here today with us, but when you watch the recording, gladly share with us what the most challenging part of this recreation was, because I know that with every recreation that I have personally made in my life so far, there was always something that I found to be challenging, and I'm sure you also had something like this. So yeah, gladly share it with us. I'll check the comments before we move to the next very interesting project by Simão. Amit says, same here, working on my daughter's project, Olympiad revision and the show. Oh, interesting. Aman says, nice project and renders. Fabio, Alessandro, could you point me to the Rata and Po Ottoman model source? Yeah, it would be awesome if Fabio would actually share the source of his assets, because they really stick out as very nice. Amit continues, might be the wood can be light and the crockery can be slightly dark or vice versa for a different effect and depth. Yeah, for sure. Again, you can always adapt a project you recreate to your needs. Just try to be aware what this actually means to the final result. So let's continue with Simão, who says, I created this scene on September 30th, 2023, in order to mark the beginning of a new stage in my life. I want to thank everyone who has been part of my journey so far, and those who will continue on this new journey. Every year that passes is an opportunity to grow, learn, and mature. And with you, I've been growing a lot and faster. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. I use the following software: 3ds Max, Corona Renderer, PS and Neo. Link to see more images is a Behance link. I follow this link, and to be honest, they are the same images, so you're a bit of a fake news about this, to be honest. But other than that, I really like this description. It's a very personal one, so if it is not a secret and you care to do so, gladly elaborate what new stage of your life began on September 30th, 2023. I'm really curious about this. Other than that, really informative. I think we know everything that we need to know to this project. As for the image presentation, the images are visually very consistent. The only thing that I don't like as much, or don't find that exciting, is that the first three images are very, very similar. Like it's just the same scene from a slightly different angle, and only the fourth one is a different one. So this makes the presentation a bit more dull. But other than that, looks really nice. Also, I really like the interactivity in the comments here, people asking questions or giving their opinion. This is awesome. So let's take a closer look at the four images. So we have the central perspective from the pool showing this terrace. Then we have it slightly angled. Then we have it a bit more slightly angled. And then we have the close-up on the table and chair combo. Design-wise, let's go to the first shot, or maybe to the second one. I like this the most, to be honest. Design-wise, I like this really fresh design with lush greenery, bold colors, the general vocational mood to it. You really achieved something there, which is really pleasant to look at. The architecture, by the way, even though it is secondary in this scene, is actually very non-generic, and I actually really want to see more from this building because it really looks interesting. The only thing that I would change when it comes to real design and for functionality of this terrace would be to take this furniture combo here and push it a bit more inside on this terrace, so that this passage that we have here between the lounge chair situation and this table and chair combo is a bit larger, so that you don't have to walk sideways in order to reach the pool. But other than that, it is great. The modeling is also really great. Even if we zoom in, it is on a really high level, so congrats on that. The materials are also good. Again, you have a very bold color combination, but it works because you start with the blue. Let's go maybe back to the first shot. You start with the blues, so with the coat color. Then you have the greens, which the color green contains blue, but it also has warmth in it from the yellow. So the green in this case is more of a transition color, in order to reach this pinkish red of the house, which is the warm color, which I think is a very, very nice transition. The materials also look pretty fine. Good job on the water surface. I even think somebody asked you about it. You can maybe add a bit of translucency to the sunshade here for a nicer effect, let's say. But this is more of a matter of taste, and this is something that one has to experiment with to see if it actually is better or worse. The lighting is also pretty great. I think it adds to this vacational leisure mood. And the framing is probably actually my biggest issue. If any issue I have with this work, it would be the framing. Because first of all, the scene looks a bit cluttered, a bit too full. Like if we take a look at the very first shot, we will see that it's actually a big mansion, let's say, because we have this really large pool, we have a lot of greenery, we have the house, but then the terrace is kind of small, and there is so much furniture on it that it actually looks kind of too full and too cluttered, in my opinion. Additionally, I would say that the color composition is a bit off. Now let me explain this, because I just, praised you about the colors used, and now I say that the color composition is a bit off. Now, the fact that those colors go together well doesn't mean that they also make a good composition. And the problem here is that what you have as something secondary, as something backgroundy, is the house. So the house isn't important, but it has like a real strong, bold highlight color to it. So if I take a look at the very first shot, for example, what I see the most isn't this terrace, which the whole set of images is about. It is this back wall, or this wall, this red wall of the house, or this part of it here. Because if you take a look at this, you see how the chairs, the table, the lounge chair, everything, maybe with exception from the white bright area of this sunshade, everything is kind of gray, beige, something. So it's very backgroundy when it comes to color composition. So instead, I don't look at the things I should be looking at actually, but instead I look at the house in the back, which is not important, right? So this is a bit of a controversy, a visual controversy, so to speak. I think that the furniture you should probably desaturate in order to, if you want to fix that. Try desaturating the house, maybe make it beige or something else, or a desaturated red, and then try to maybe give some color to this furnishing here. I will just show you a few examples of mine, just so you see where this visual controversy comes from. So you maybe have seen this image of mine that I did for the 10th anniversary of my studio in last year. And you see it is a bit similar. So we have a ton of green stuff in the surroundings here, right? Initially, I didn't want the image to be like that. Let's say, even though this is the version I worked on the whole time, it is more or less an extended version, because the image that I actually needed in the end was this one. I wanted to be in a portrait mode because I wanted to primarily use it like this. And in this situation, you see a lot of the green to the left and right is being cut off. So it is easier to focus on this main eye catcher or main actor of this scene, which in this case is the table where I virtually invited my guests to. But I knew that I would also gladly use this image for title images, let's say on Facebook or something. So I needed this white version of it, so the landscape aspect ratio version of it. And obviously it is full of green stuff. So what I tried to do in this case in terms of color composition is I took the reds the same way as you did. So we have this complementary color, the reds and the greens. I took the reds. I used them in a more saturated form on smaller objects, which in this case are the two balloons and this juice here. And the second form of this red is the less saturated form, are the chairs here, who still make a nice contrast to the greens behind them. And you see how actually, despite all the greenery, this sea of green here, it is still easy to focus on this scene again, even though we're far away from it, because sure, once you're next to it, it's easier to focus on it, obviously, but it works even on a more distant angle. But you have to have your color priorities for that. And as for the furniture, because I mentioned that you may give your furniture some bold colors, you can try something like this. The bold color doesn't have to be a different color, a complementary one. It can also work together with the greens, for example, like in this case where I have these blue chairs on the background of all the greenery. So maybe just think about it. Other than that, I would say try to use depth of field when you can. You see we have some leaves near the camera here. If you had depth of field on them, it would be easier to concentrate more on this scene. And the thing that I mentioned in the beginning while we are talking about the framing still is that the first three angles are very, very similar, and they don't really add new mood or new information to the viewer's attention. So you see, we have the straight ahead, so the central perspective. We have the angled view, which to me is the one that you should go with because it has a really good natural framing. You see how all these twigs and all these leaves are raging into the image, following the general form of our main area here, which is really awesome. On the last one, we have, I think too much of this tree visible, so that is almost covering, the whole situation here. And only different angle is actually the last one, which is more or less a close-up. What I don't like as much about this one is that you have cut off the legs of those chairs. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I would try to go for something like this, just to make the scene look more spacious and less cluttered, because the way it currently is, one gets the idea that the photographer didn't have space to go a few steps behind more in order to take a proper photo without cutting off the legs. Like there is a wall or something behind the photographer, so he or she has to just take the photo as it is, which doesn't correspond to the reality of this situation, because obviously there is a lot of space there, right? But with all of this being said, I would say this is one really good personal project. I hope that this, what started on, what was it, the 30th of September 2023, is a great, good new stage of your life. Fingers crossed for that. And if you want, you may try to maybe adjust the color composition of this, and maybe try to get a few new angles, maybe close-ups, or angles that are vastly different to the existing ones. I suggest, for example, one close-up maybe on this head here, maybe on the bottles that are in the ice. I think this would be pretty nice. And with this, we can move on. Let me check the comments. Oh, Fabio is here. Hey, hi Fabio. And Flatson join us as well. Dang, cool. People, let's move on to the next one, which is Seper's work. He says, hey guys, my new commercial project for an Airbnb use. They were looking for a combination design from modern to nature in their work because the location of the project is close to the sea. It's done in Rhino and V-Ray, and we have Seper's Instagram. So a really good description provides all the info needed to properly understand the project. And also the images are really nicely varied and interesting to look at. And I always love to see white model with a light balance. So I would say, let's dive in. So we have this central perspective shot of the bedroom. Then the light mix, the light balance shot. Then we have one close-up to the right of the bed. Then we have the opposite side, at least I assume that it is the opposite side, the opposite wall. Then we have one really wonderful close-up to the left of the bed. And then we have this very interesting angle from above, isometric. So we're back at the first image, and I would say that this is one really interesting design, at least to me. And I don't mean it interesting in the way a girl says some boy is nice, meaning she won't date him. I actually really mean that this is actually interesting to me, because it's again pretty eclectic. Last time we had Flatson's project, this kitchen, which had an eclectic design, and this again, at least to me, seems like this as well, because it seems to be a mix of different elements from different parts of the world or cultures, mostly Asian, I would say. But yeah, if you ask me about these motifs here, I would say on the pillow, for example, I would say this is something more Oriental or Indian. Then we have these pendants, the nightstand lamps, which I would consider to be a modern day interpretation of a classic Eastern Asian lantern, just not in red. Then on the contrary, we have this lamp here, the pendant above the bed, which to me looks like one IKEA lamp that at least I know of, or some designer lamp, but more on the European side. Then we have this rattan furniture, which to me I think is very typically Indonesian or something. And then there is the other side of this space where we actually have something like Scandinavian minimalism paired with a Persian carpet. So it is wild, but to me it kind of works. I'm not sure how good it works between both sides of this room. So this side, the more Oriental one, and this, I would say, European one. But again, it is a matter of taste. I personally enjoy it. As for The Last of Us being on TV, I have never seen the series. I've only played the games, but zombie, fungus, post-apocalyptic, death, and so on. I'm not sure if this is the best thing to run on a TV in an Airbnb in a seaside area. It just doesn't fit the mood, in my opinion. When it comes to the background, I don't think that the background really fits in this situation. It seems like it's perspectively wrong at first place. You have to check your horizon line. It seems to be too high. And also it doesn't match the global illumination. Like if you take a look at the backside of the curtain facing out, you'll see that it is quite heavily lit. But when you take a look at the background, it looks like some dusk situation or something. So I don't think this is really good. Maybe you should, or definitely you should fix this. When it comes to the modeling, however, which is usually a point that I normally have issues with your works, in this case, however, it actually looks fine to me. The only thing that I really see as something you should better change or adapt or add to the image is to have some transition between the floor and the wall. So kind of a baseboard made out of the floor tiles. I think this will just make this transition more natural, more realistic. But other than that, I actually like the modeling on this project, and this is awesome. And let me continue with the second point that I usually always have something to nag about with your works, which is the materials. But in this case, again, I find that the materials look and act quite good. They also go together well for me. Maybe you can add some translucency to the curtain here if you feel like it, but again, this is not necessary. This would be just nice to have. Then let's move on to the lighting. The lighting, we see it here. It works, especially when it comes to the artificial lighting. I think it is really nicely balanced. Now, when it comes to the natural light, because you have a very large glazing to the right, I think that the natural light is not really optimally used. It's there, it does the job to illuminate the scene, but it doesn't do more, so it doesn't add to the mood, which I think is a bit of a pity in this case. Framing wise, again, this is another topic where I usually have something to criticize, but in this case, honestly, I am really okay with this. I like the close-ups. I like especially this one I really enjoy, and this one from above. I also like the main shots, so to me it works. The only problem I have here is the visual connection between this part of the room and the opposite part, if this is the opposite part at all. So let's say this it is. I would say then maybe try to place the camera in a way that's, let's say, the bottom part of the bed, this yellow part of the bed is visible somewhere here, so that you establish a visual connection between these two spaces, and it becomes visible where this very different looking area is actually situated. But other than this, I would say this is one really strong commercial work of yours. It shows that you really cared about the quality of the final outcome in this case, because you have uploaded projects in this group where I was a bit direct and honest with you, and I was like, dude, you didn't put enough love and care and time into this and effort, but in this case you did, and it really shows. And maybe you can even take it to the next level when you fix the background and try to add more moody and atmospheric environmental lighting. And with this we can move on, if you folks don't have any questions or something to comment, to a small announcement by Marco from Boutique, the new school, who are a Chaos Academic partner, and this is a link to a 3.5 minute really short show reel of what their students did in 2023. I watched it. I found it really inspiring. It made me really want to dive in some personal project just to explore something new. So maybe if you haven't, give it a try, and maybe it also is inspiring to you as well. And then we can continue with Amit's work. Amit has written a very long text, so let's read it. He says, "Hi all, wanted to share the recent project that I'm working on. It's a 2BHK, which for those of you who don't know, like I didn't, is double bedroom housing program, interior project, and I have finished with the living room, and the client has also finalized the images and approved them. There were a couple of changes material-wise and some indoor decor-wise. We'll share all those set of images and you can tell me which one you liked or didn't like them at all. If the images are not good, no hard feelings taken, as everyone can't like everything." This is true. "The project is still an ongoing project, so more images will be coming in the future as well. The software used is 3ds Max, Corona 10 and Photoshop. Also, if there is any room for improvement, even at a micro level, then do let me know, as I will take all the feedback positively and will implement them in future. Also, Theo will be taking this up in the next session, so I'm ready to be boxed if things are not up to the standards. By the way, the 3rd and 4th image are final. The 5th image I did, as I didn't like the green plant which the client wanted, as it does not go with the theme, and that green plant just pops out in the eyes with the first look, so I went with the pampas grass as it goes well in the scheme. Thank you all." Thank you too, Amit. Maybe try with shorter sentences, because I don't have enough lung capacity to read sentences like this. But jokes aside, this is one awesome description, because it is always great to read the backstory of a project in order to properly understand it. I also enjoyed the general positivity of yours. I mean, you already show that you're feeling happy here, and also this attitude of yours that you even want every mistake that somebody sees to just be shared with you. I think this is an awesome attitude on your side. And as for the images, I would say they're very consistent looking despite the material changes. But of course, on the other side, they are not very so exciting to look at as a small preview here, because it's actually two main angles. This one and these 3 images are the other angle. But in this case, we're making more or less a comparison. So I'd say it makes sense. Oh, my mom just joined the chat. So yeah, let's take a look at the design. Let's see them in large and take a look at the design. So we have the central perspective of the living room with some nice niche to the right with a window in it, I assume. And on the other side, we have the TV with the low board, and we see the same niche to the left this time. So yeah, I'd say it's fairly simple. It's actually nice though. I mean, it's not catalog-like, it's not over the top, but at the same time, it's also not really boring, just the usual quadratic walls and everything is white, because there are some really nice elements. What I like are those wooden panels. Doesn't matter if, if in this wood, coloring, or this one which is the saturated or painted on. Also, I really like those small gaps in the wall with the lights in them. I think they're a really nice design architectural element. So yeah, it's actually an interesting project to look at, despite again not being over the top or like extremely different and special. Now here there is a review, a really nice review by Aman to your project. I don't know why we don't see it, but it is there. And Aman points a few things that I really agree with. And one of those is that this area here, it's obviously meant for people to also be able to sit on. And you already have these two pillows here, which very much show that. So a man, and this was also the first thing that I thought was that it would be great to have a cushion here so that the sitting there is more comfortable, right? But the thing is, then you said, yeah, well, you also think the same, but your client wouldn't like something like this, so you didn't do it. But the thing is, once you have delivered the images to the client, you are free to go back to them and change everything that you don't think was the best in the way that you delivered them. So if you think, let's say the second topic here was this ceiling fan, which Aman said would look like with motion blur to it. If you think that cushion will look good here on this edge and the ceiling fan would look good with motion blur to it, then before you post here or elsewhere, go back to the project and gladly do those changes, because again, you are an experienced artist. So if you think that something is in a certain way, why not try it out? At least try it out, because there is no real point of sharing the image the way it is and then writing in the comments, yeah, I would have done it otherwise. If you want to do it otherwise, just do so, and again, about the motion blur here, you said that your clients or the people you work with don't like motion blur ceiling fans, which is a legit point. But I gotta ask you, are you happy with your current clients? Because if you say, yeah, they give me interesting project, they give me a lot of work, good payments and so on, then I understand that you want to fully cater to them. But if you want to, let's say, have new, better clients, then I think it is a good idea to try to cater to them as well. And maybe then, if you want clients that really appreciate good visualization work, and this includes, in case like this, the cushions here or the motion blur on the ceiling fan, then maybe try to make images for your portfolio also for them as well. So, just points to think about. And in the meantime, we can move on to the modeling, which really looks good to me. In general, I have nothing to criticize there. Maybe this plant, you're absolutely right about it. This plant looks fake. It looks like a plastic artificial plant. I really understand why you decided to exchange it for the realized version. And indeed, you see, you already started doing this. You saw that this thing isn't really good the way it is, so you replaced it with something which is way better. And maybe the TV, I'm not sure, the TV could use maybe a brand logo or generally be a bit of a better asset. But other than that, I really like everything about the modeling. The materials I like a lot as well. I don't have much to say about them. Maybe the only thing the color scheme is very pleasant, very soothing. What I don't like as much is the heavy pattern on the parquet, because take a look at everything else. You see the wood here on the frame, the wall, the wooden panels, the ceiling fan. Everything has a very subtle, slight structure to it, or patterning. And then you have the parquet, which is really strongly pronounced, and to me also distracting. So if I were you, I would go with a different material. And again, if the client here says, no, I want this one, then you give them what they want, and then go back to the project and just exchange the parquet for a more subtle one. Easy as that. And also, the next thing that I see is that the couch looks pretty saturated. Like I'm not sure if it is the material is too dark, or if it is too saturated, or if it's both. Or maybe, which is also a very possible, cause of this, is that this it's the lighting. Because what you have here, if we analyze the lighting and move on to this point, we have this key light coming from the right. It's the natural light coming from the outside, but you don't seem to have a fill light as on the opposite side of it, so to the left. And let me show you something about this. So you probably know this project of mine, RGB. It is a similar situation. So we have this couch, we have the natural lighting, the key light coming from the right. So it is pretty similar, but what you see here as a difference is that I have no really dark areas within the cushions or dark shadows or on the not so illuminated side of the armrest here. Let's compare it to here, you know, with the really, really dark shadows, which are, in my opinion, too contrasty. And the reason for that is that if you take a closer look, you will see that I also have a light source coming from the left. This light source is a way smaller opening, because to the right it's a full glazing and to the left it's just a small opening, but it makes a difference. You can see it here on this asset, for example. We have the key light being the strongest light coming from the right, but we also have this light, it reflects even a bit here, that takes care of everything in the shadowy side not being too dark. And yeah, let's see that the back side of the armrest is not dark because of this light, and there is also some shadowing here. So maybe think about a solution like this, even if you don't have a window there or some opening or something that you can use. You can always just add solution number one would be just a white plane, not with a material attached to it, just a white color that you put somewhere here, invisible to the camera, that just reflects some of the light back. Or you can then put an artificial light source, a corona light, somewhere in there. And if you have, if you're like, yeah, but there is no lamp there, you know, think about this like a professional photography set. And if a professional photographer comes here to make professional photos of this situation, they will have their stuff with them, which would be stuff like reflectors or a light kit and so on, which they will actually use to optimally illuminate their photos. So let's say they have put a reflector somewhere in there. Just try to imitate that. And as for the last shot, I agree with the man on this. It looks overexposed a bit, so maybe tone it down. Framing wise, I think both images work. On the first one, my initial thought when I saw it was that I would have gone probably for a landscape format on this one, because everything that's interesting and happens somewhere here. So I would have probably chosen this. This would have also made, this way I would have also gotten rid of this empty area in the foreground. But even as a portrait format, it also works the way it is now, mostly because of those spots in the ceiling, because without them, this would just be a very, boring ceiling. But with them, we have something to look at in this area. So I think that the composition generally works. And as for the empty foreground, you can always put a cat which goes from left to right or right to left there, or maybe a Roomba just cleaning the floor, to add a bit more dynamic there and to make this space, which currently is just boring, more interesting. As for the second shot here, the landscape, the portrait format absolutely makes sense. It is the right thing to do, nothing to say about it. What I really like here as well is this visual continuation of the space, this thing here. Now, it's just a small part of this image, and maybe some will think, well, this is not so important, but it actually is. And this is for two reasons. First of all, seeing that this space continues and there is another space somewhere here makes the viewer naturally, subconsciously want to see more, because there is more to this apartment. And the second thing is, once you do it like this, and there is this visible room continuation or space continuation, then the viewer has the feeling that you have built the whole model and you have just chosen to place the camera in this situation, in this particular case. If we compare to the first image, however, this could be just a large hangar space where there is nothing behind the camera, nothing to the left of it as well, and you have just put some furniture in one corner of it. You see the difference? So this thing here, it may be a small detail, but it's actually has a big significance, at least in my opinion. Gladly let me know what you think. And again, then we have the same topic as we had with Sepea about the camera clipping, because I would bet that you have used it here. And, just take a look at this image here. So you see how much free space we have when, let's say, from the edge of the carpet here. So it looks like whoever took the photo was standing here, and then they could go like 3 or 4 meters back and then turn around and take the photo, right? Which absolutely isn't the case if you go to the next shot, because you see that we don't have so much space from the edge of this rug or carpet until the low board. This is maybe like 50 or 70 centimeters. So I think that this camera clipping is very deceptive often. So I personally try not to use it as much as possible. So maybe just consider it for the future. But with all of this, I'd say this is again one very quality commercial project. Again, don't forget that before you upload it, or whatever you upload, before you upload it, you can always change it a bit so that it is the way you want it to be before sharing it with us. And with this being said, gladly trust yourself more. You have seen lots of images already. You have been on all of these shows so far, if I'm not mistaken. So you have seen a lot. You know how to think as an artist. So maybe trust yourself more. Trust your gut. Trust your self-esteem, and maybe try to convince your clients otherwise. Try to convince them that sometimes they should just listen to you. And as for you folks in the comments, I would say, how do you do in such situations? Do you try to reason with your clients? Do you try to convince them to do something or not to do something? Or do you prefer to just, do what you're told, put a smile on, get your money, and just deliver your work and, move on? I think both are legit. I personally try to convince them, but at some point I also give up. Amit says, totally agree, we'll keep this in mind and we'll do the necessary changes. Cool. And Subhan joined us. Hi, Subhan. Well, your project is one of the next. Here we have another project by Sepea, but you know the rules, 1 work per artist per week, so I gotta skip this one, but I'd gladly still shortly just open it, just because it is something different. In this case, it's just this very atmospheric, very moody scene in the woods. It has something from, one of those crime series. Really nice environmental effects, cool lighting. It's really cool to look at, and, a nice distraction from the archviz, from the usual archviz. Maybe Sepea, don't let those clumps of grass, levitate, put them down a bit. But other than that, it's quite cool. And then let's move to another project done in Rhino. As a former user, I really love to see that. This time by Mahmoud, rendered in Vantage. He says, finally, my latest project, a Gothic coffee shop done in Rhino 7, V-Ray 6, Lightroom, and Vantage. Obviously, a very interesting project with a nice description. It's short, but on point, but it's missing one crucial info, and this crucial info being, is this a commercial or a personal project, right? Because the way you see how this looks like, it would be really awesome, at least in my opinion, if this was an actual commercial project. As for the images themselves, they really look nice. They really make me curious, make me want to click on them so that I see them in large and view all the detail to them. And the visual variety is also given, so all in all, a pretty cool presentation. But please let us know if this is a commercial or a personal one. So let's take a look at the images. So we have this, very atmospheric close-up. I cannot really read what it says because this feather is on them, but again, I don't think that is so very important. Then we have the main scene, which I really dig. Then some fragments of it. So these are no new renders, just pieces that you cut out of it. And then the light balance model, which is great. And the first time I see somebody actually cutting off fragments of a shot like this, but I mean, why not? And then we have a few close-ups of different elements of the scene. And the last image is then this, what we started with, but this time with a different angle and lighting mood to it. And yeah, obviously this is something special, something different. First, because of the Gothic architecture. Second, because of the very fitting materials, atmosphere, and everything that is to this project. And to me personally, it looks like a cool place to be. I would gladly sit there and have a drink, to be honest. The modeling is also pretty strong on this one. I would say it's a difficult scene with complex details, but it's pulled off really nicely. The assets are good as well. I like the randomization of repeating elements, such as these bar stools. It always adds a layer of authenticity to the image. What I don't like as much is this, on the first shot, this burnt paper. First of all, the edges look kind of fake. They don't look like they're really cut or burned. They look like, I don't know, just some random form. And then there is this repetition where you see that, this cut or the burnt edge is always the same. So, given that these pages, you only see the first page with the text on it, you can at least, try to rotate, mirror, or whatever the page that are below it, so that you don't have this copy paste look to it. Material wise, I would say everything is very fitting. The displacement I like a lot. This is really visible here. I don't know if you just didn't override it or if you have used a modifier for this, but it looks really good and fits the situation. The only thing that I don't like is obviously this floor texture. It's very low quality, so either upscale it or use a different solution. As for the lighting, I would say I like it. Let's go back to the main scene. I like the lighting. It works. The combination of, the GI of the exterior lighting and what we have on the inside, the artificial one. Of course, in a scene like this, God rays will be more than welcome. Just, we can just Google it, like a Gothic church or cathedral and God rays. They belong together just so neatly. So I think you can gladly try. I think this will add another layer of very strong atmosphere to the whole image. And yeah, judging let's talk about the background, because this is one of the main issues I have here. Because on the main shot, there is a background here, but judging by the clay model here or the close-ups later, I don't think that this, maybe you have put this background in the post-production, or it was a backplate that you just used for the main shot. But it is actually a pity this way, because now we don't see anything on the outside. So my suggestion here is try using an HDRI. You can just override your background, your reflections and refractions. You'll not only be more flexible with your angles, because there will always be something on the outside, but then your refractions and reflections will also look better. Framing wise, I would say the main scene and these close-ups with the papers are actually really pretty rad. What I don't like as much are the close-ups, the other close-ups, because I don't know, this one is kind of okay because of the nice depth of field and because we see a whole situation visible in the background. But it doesn't work everywhere, because let's say here we don't have the contrast that we need, because we have the dark underside of this counter and also the dark cushion, so you don't have enough contrast. Also, there are lots of these chairs behind each other, which makes for a messy image. And here it looks a bit like I don't know, maybe an ad for this chair or for its leather. And this one, it is not properly illuminated, so the area that is actually of interest is underexposed, and the properly exposed areas are the windows that we see nothing behind. So this isn't good as well. And this one, even though it's nicely modeled, there is nothing behind it. So yeah, it looks more like a random, smartphone architectural shot rather than something moody and really nice. So I think that you could do better when it comes to this. But again, this is one really, really cool project, and I hope it is a real one, really. This would be awesome. Something happened here. I gotta scroll back. I hope this is a real project, because it would be really awesome to have something like this in real life. But yeah, let's move on. I'll just check the comments. Amit says he tries to convince his clients, but it works 50% of the time. 50% is good. I wouldn't say it works a lot more on my side, to be honest. Helen says, it depends. Sometimes I just give up and think by myself. Sometimes I defend my opinion. Yeah, this is the thing. Let's move on to Amman. We are at 1 hour now. We didn't want to make it longer than an hour and a half. Let's see. We have half an hour at max. More now. So Aman says, hi everyone, sharing a recent image I did for a luxury bedroom interior. This was basically a rework on one of my old projects done for an upcoming housing project in Gurgaon, India. I am enclosing the new and old versions so I can get some honest feedback on how much I improved and what can be enhanced further. So the first image is the new render. It's done in 3ds Max and Corona. This is important in this case because the second image, so the bottom one, is done in Max and V-Ray GPU. Also, would be noteworthy to mention that I converted the old V-Ray scene to Corona, and just with some minor tweaks I could get it up and running with good results. As always, looking for honest suggestions and feedback from Theo and all of you. So yeah, first of all, you got a really honest and long feedback from Abdi from IAS Art 3D and Motion Graphics. You've read it already, I think, and this is awesome. And then you will receive another one from me now. This time I won't be going through our usual points like design and so on, but instead I will just start with the original image, give you a bit of my input, what I like, what I dislike about it, and then we'll move on to the new one. So about this scene, the initial one done in Max and V-Ray GPU, I would say a relatively simple scene, but with a sweet, crisp look to it. It's generally nicely done. The modeling is clean. The assets look good to me. The materials look good as well. The lighting is decent. It's not very attractive, but it is there and it works. And I also like this architectural situation here. Just for all of you to see, this is like one gray wall, right? It has some interesting material to it, but it is just one gray wall. And it has just those two grouts here. But they make such a huge difference because they somehow partition it and they make it look interesting. So just for you to see what a huge impact something simple like a small grout could have. And I really love this situation up here. It's interesting to me as an architect. What I don't like as much on this scene is the plant in the corner. It looks kind of fake. It is also very saturated. Generally, I don't like that. I miss lively details that make this space lived in. Something like a book or an alarm clock on the nightstand, or maybe some slippers on the floor. Just stuff like that makes it not just look like a showroom bedroom, but like the bedroom that actually belongs to somebody. Again, I already mentioned it, the natural lighting, it's there, it does a job, but it's not very utilized. It doesn't really add to the mood. And the lighting composition is a bit off, so let's just analyze it together. In this case, I will just select this area so that we can take a look at it. So if we take a look at this right the right side with this edge here, you will see how we have dark here and bright here. And this we have on many occasions, right? So we have dark going to bright, how it should be actually, you know. So this edge, the right edge of the image, works as it should be because it brings our focus to the middle of the image. On the other side, however, we have the dark here and the bright outside of it. So this image is, I would say, flowing out. It's not balanced because on this side there is nothing that is holding back, nothing dark that is holding back the light. So it just flows out of the image, which makes for an unbalanced image. Now let's compare with the new one. And you will see that immediately this is better. So let's start with one of the good things on the new version is that in this case, what we had on the other side, right? So we still have on this side, we still have this dark to bright gradient. This time we have it on this side as well. It's different. It's not a gradient. It's more like a line, but it is there. It is how it should be. So this time the attention of the viewer gets visually focused through this lighting composition towards the middle of the image where it should be and where it belongs. So this is obviously very positive. You also have utilized the outdoor lighting more with this sun rays coming from the outside in and adding a layer of atmosphere to the whole image. The materials behave way better now. I'm not sure if you changed them or if this is a difference in the render engine, but if you take a look at the nightstand top and in the V-Ray GPU render, it seems here, so this night lamp emits some light, but it seems like only the foundation of the lamp receives the light because the top of this nightstand doesn't seem to have anything to do with that light. Now, if you compare the Corona result here, you see how this dark metal is actually brighter here because it actually has received some of the light from this lamp, which to me makes sense and it's better material behavior. I also like the carpet more. Not that the old one was better, but was bad. But this one is just better. It just has more volume to it. It just looks nicer to me. The reflection on the brass lamps is again better. This is interesting to know if this is because of the V-Ray GPU, but this is here very rudimentary reflection, and here it is really, really realistic. And yeah, there is this a bit more stuff in the room, which is in form of this chair. So there are more details. You have also replaced the plant with a better one. So this is, to me, on the positive side. On a negative one, still I miss those personal belongings or those details that make the room lively. And again, even if you delivered it in a situation, in this form as you have uploaded it here, you can always add to it after you have delivered it and actually make this, add those details. Also, modeling wise, personally, I like the situation in the previous version here more than the new one. And this is again, if you also like it more, just swap the two ceilings and then you have it. The wall art is interesting because this one is nice but looks a bit generic. Still though, it corresponds a lot with the room because it has the white from the bed, it has the dark from the other parts of the bed, but it also has this gold, beige or brass that we have on the lamps or on the curtains or on the floor. And on the new version, you have this wall art, which is not so generic like the other ones, but at the same time corresponds mostly just with the bed and let's say with the curtains, but less with the floor or those brass elements on the lamps. And maybe the bloom is a bit too strong in this version. But yeah, other than that, I would say the new version is better, so it is a step ahead. Still though, considering the projects of yours that we have seen in previous episodes of this show, I think that you can even do a bit better. You see here, you haven't used, automatic vertical tilt on your camera. So I think that you can maybe put a bit more love into it, some a bit more details, make it more atmospheric, more moody, more lively and lived in looking. And I think that it would become even better then. I see you have commented, you've said, cool, I did the darker curtain on the left, but never thought of it from the lighting composition point of view. Thanks for the observation, welcome. Yes, I did some changes to the lighting and material in the new scene. Okay, so it's not a difference between the V-Ray GPU and Corona, but it's the material. Yeah, the new material is better. And sure, we'll look into your tips there. Thanks a lot. You're very welcome, man. And to you, people watching, which version do you prefer? Do you prefer the new one or the old one? Gladly share it either here in the show or in the comments with Aman. And then we move to Subhan. It's going to be a quick one because this is a relatively quick and simple scene. Subhan says, hello friends, my new work. I hope you like it. Thanks. Software is 3ds Max and Corona. I see you have removed this about part, which was about you being a 3D artist from Pakistan and open to work. I mean, thanks for listening. This is great. You can, instead of removing it completely, make the about part about the project instead of about you. And again, it is not an issue to just share your Instagram or your website or something for a bit of self-promotion. Just don't turn it into a marketplace, right? Because let's say in this situation, your presentation is actually pretty cool, but I miss two, let's say, very important points. The one of them being if it is a commercial or personal project, and also the purpose of it. Like it could be many different things. It could be a part of an interior that you did where you just decided to upload this one image and not the others. It could be just one image that you did to train something, so a personal project. Or let's say you did an ad for a poster maker, I don't know. So information like this is very interesting to know always. Other than that, the image looks good though, gotta admit that. Design-wise, again, there is not so much to it, but it's also not bad. To me, it could be some kind of a waiting room or reception, I don't know. Again, it is difficult to figure out what the image is about. The thing that to me is the most properly presented in this scene is this poster. So I'd like to ask you, is it about the poster? I cannot, or is it about the message on the poster? Unfortunately, I cannot read it. I don't know what it says, but maybe it's something important. So this is the whole thing, why the whole thing is about. I don't know. This is why it's always good to provide more info in the description. The modeling, I'd say, is simple, but it works. I like how you didn't just let the wall finish and the floor start, but you actually added the baseboard, and the assets are good as well. So yeah, in this regard, it is good. And let's continue with the materials, who are also pretty good, if you ask me. I like how pronounced this painted brick texture is. It looks really, really nice. I like the mapping of it. You placed it really nicely so that there is this window sill here, so that this grout matches what happens here. This is pretty cool to me. I'm not sure about the floor, or you probably did it with floor gen. I'm not sure about the pattern of it, but this is a matter of personal taste. It's not so important. Just material wise, I would suggest that because you have this yellowish board down here, baseboard, which doesn't really correspond to the interior colors that you have, because you have the white wall and the dark floor. So if I were you, I would actually desaturate it so that it is not yellowish but just black and white or monochrome. So the black points will then correspond to the floor and the white to the white bricks. Lighting wise, it's actually interesting because it is a contre-jour shot, which is difficult to be properly lit up or exposed, but it actually works. The way it is, it works. And yeah, maybe just turn on this light bulb here. If Nikos Nikolopoulos was here, he would immediately say that you should turn it on to get a bit of warm light somewhere here as a counterweight to this, what you have here. And maybe you can experiment a bit with the light. Maybe you can try gobo lights. If you don't know about gobo lights, do some reading, because in a situation like this you can save a lot of time by using gobo lights, because they're ready-made. You just use them as a light, but they already have some structure to them, which can make the interior lighting very moody, very interesting and instant, and very easily as well. And to the framing, I'd say works. I would say you have used the rule of thirds here, which is nice. It's always good to follow those general photographic rules. Again, it depends on the purpose of the image. If it is about a chair, for example, then it is not as great of a framing as if it was about the poster, for example, because if it is about this poster, it is a pretty good framing, because we see really nicely the poster. It's a real clear focus here. But yeah, I don't know what project this is, but if you decided to just do an exercise, start small and simple, but try to make everything as good as possible, then I'm absolutely with you on this. I think this is a good idea to do, and you did well in this regard. What we have now, before I move on to this very small video, which is the last for today, we have Stella. Her project isn't like initially posted. She posted this in 2023, obviously, in April, towards the end of April. So this was this image that she seems to have reworked, and yesterday she posted it as a comment down here. So you can see the new version she posted here, because back then I gave her some feedback. So I thought it would be maybe a nice idea to quickly go through this is the initial image, and this is the new one. So we can just take a, brief look at the new one, which I would say immediately comes to mind. It is brighter, which makes it kind of more friendly, more inviting compared to the initial one. I like that you have used depth of field in the foreground, Stella. This makes the focus on these spaces here easier and better. I also like that you have added this woman, as I advised you to, because she adds a bit of scale and also dynamic to the scene. What I don't like as much, or I don't think works optimally so far, is because you seem to have moved the camera a bit to the front. And if we compare to the original here, you see how this hole in the ceiling has its frame. We just talked about this, light or brightness of the image escaping the shot, what we had with Aman. And in this case, we have it again because there is no frame anymore here. So if we try to analyze the image, I think it is important. We have, let me just see how I do it. We have this framing here, right? Following the plans. We have this framing here, and obviously we have the framing here. So if we try to analyze it, you see we have the dark to bright, right? Here. So this thing works here as well, here, as it should be. It's not a problem to have two areas like this, but here it just leaves the image. So there is no border to hold it back, which again makes the image not balanced, in my opinion, as it was more in its initial state. Other than that, the woman herself, if you take a look at what I recommended back then, it was not, there is this color that I used, and it was a deliberate decision to recommend an image like this, not only because of the woman jumping, it's obviously over the top, but because of her color, because it is a bold color, and she would stick out more and be more visible, because currently she it becomes kind of, too much integrated into this scenery here and not really as visible as I think she should be. Material wise, I would say there is this material repetition here which doesn't look nice. To prevent it, especially with a sandstone material like this, just use the UVW randomizer, or the material randomizer as it is called now in Corona, because you're a Corona user, and make sure to check the randomize each tile option, and then you'll get rid of it. The wall here, let's say it seems a bit empty. So I would say either consider adding some structure to it, or alternatively maybe place or move those plants to the left so that they cover more of it. But this is a solution only if you work with this one angle. If you want to actually have other angles, then add some structure to the wall or something there. And last thing is that the exterior, it looks too clear. I think you should add some environmental effects, some distance fog here, so that we get a bit of depth to this image. So yeah, in conclusion, I would say this is a step ahead, but I think that you can even make more out of it. Gladly work with references for that, really. This would help you a lot. And with this being said, I just checked the comments quickly. I see that everybody prefers Aman's new version of the image. So Aman, obviously, this is a clear answer. This is a step ahead. What we have here is a very short animation by Abdi. It's done in... we'll have to wait for this. While we wait, let's go back. So it's done in Max with Phoenix and Tyflow for the droplets. It's great to have somebody like Abdi in the group, because he's really good at Tyflow and Rail Clone and Phoenix, topics like this, which are a bit more niche but also very important. So yeah, let's hope I can just close this and we can then take a look. The sound is really good. It's really nicely fits the animation. The materials I like a lot as well. The droplets are awesome, done with Tyflow, just for you as an idea what can be done with Tyflow. And I would say, just for the camera, with your sets of skills, Abdi, I think that you can actually try to use a motion capture camera, something like a 3D surround set goggles or something, so that it looks more natural rather than this camera slide from A to B. And yeah, the last thing that I prepared for today, obviously, this meme from Teddy. It's always great to see her around. So Teddy, gladly visit us more often. And yeah, this is already today's show running. I see that there is a new project by Subhan, but we already talked about one of your projects, Subhan. So yeah, maybe this can stay for next week, or maybe the others will provide you enough feedback so that you know what to do with this work. And with 1 hour and 23 minutes, we are actually at the end of this show. And I think it will be really the shortest one, which is okay. If you don't have any questions or anything else, I would just say we'll see each other again on October the 17th, so next Tuesday. And so far, I will hope to see you there next week. I hope you'll be safe, you have good projects to work on, and it doesn't matter if it is a commercial one or some personal one. If you have any ideas on something you want to work on, gladly share it in the group. Let us talk from time to time and just discuss topics. We have this chat to the show. It's the Keeping It Realistic chat, where we can just casually talk on topics. So in order to build this community and have it be as strong as it is. This week again, there was feedback. There were people commenting and interacting with each other, which I think is awesome. It's the way a healthy community is. Let's keep it this way, and let's make this the most awesome community about visualization on Facebook. I see Amit says it was a great session with lots of reviews and advices. Thanks, mate, for your time, and thanks to all of you. Thanks from me too. Hope to see you next week. Bye. Be safe. All the best. Aman says yes. Thanks again. Looking forward to the next session. Me too. Have a good week. Bye, folks. We see.